There we go.
Are we
Hey,
live?
Buffy. We are live.
Hello. So
Yes,
do you
we
like
are.
the Zoom level, Steve, or you want me to mess with that?
I think it's a pretty good Zoom. You
Zoom
could
level?
come in a touch, but not necessary.
I'll leave it there. You're supposed to tell me when I'm got everything junk all over my surroundings back here.
Did not notice.
All right, Alan says it's time for roll call, Steve. You know what that means. We got to do roll call if Alan says so. So we've got Alan and Kevin and Jason, Frank and Jill and John and Mike and Rick and Sandy. And I think we had Wheels in the sidebar, didn't we? We got Wheels, and I wonder if Rose is here.
I don't see Rose yet, but Frank is definitely here.
All right. What was the name of that last song? What? All right. Well, we've got a...
Oh, you mean playing... Hold on, Frank, you mean playing on YouTube, I assume. I will go find out, and it'll take me a bit, so I'll get back to you.
So that's some stock...
Yeah, it was from a music service, royalty-free music service I subscribe to, but I can't remember the name now. It doesn't matter too much because they changed their service, so it had to be a subscription. You could buy by the song, and I dropped them.
Yeah. All right, Kevin only wants us to spend $1,300 on him, Steve. Gold. It's supposed to be rose gold. Well, he only went for 8 gigs of memory. All right. There we go. That's weird. That just launched Safari. I didn't know it'd do that. All right. Well, I think I should start recording. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm not going to do a lot of recording because there's a really long security bits. We had too much fun. It wasn't like a bunch of horrible stuff happened, but there were 2 security mediums, so it ran long. So it won't be as much content from me. Oh, it wants me to save the file. And see, yep. There we go. All right, here goes. Muting. Oh, Steve muted himself. Look at him go, girl.
We lost your audio? At least I don't hear it. Oh, I'm still on Discord. Talk again, please. Yeah, I lost both audio in Discord and Mimo. You can't hear anything either, huh?
Do you hear me now?
I hear you now. I do.
Do you hear
but
me now?
Oh, we're in the loop.
Do you hear me now?
We're in the loop.
Do you hear me now?
Sorry.
Do you hear me now?
Loop.
Do you hear me now? 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 Do you hear me now?
Hold on, folks. She's got to take some data before she stops this.
Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now?
She's gathering data to send to the developer.
Do you hear me now? 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 Do you hear me now?
It's a Verizon commercial.
Do you hear me now?
Yes,
do you hear me now? 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 Do you hear me now?
You got your data yet, Al?
Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now?
So can you stop it?
Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now?
Maybe
do you hear me now?
You got to quit Discord or something.
Do you hear me
now? This is not
do you hear
stopping.
me now? Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now?
No, it's still going. Do you hear me now? Still going.
Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now?
No, now it's going once.
Do you hear me now?
Then maybe.
Do you hear me now?
I don't know which one you stopped.
Do you hear me now? 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 Do you hear me now?
I'm hearing it both still.
Do you hear me now?
Discord and Mimo.
Do you hear me now? 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 Do you hear me now?
Okay, that stopped. Now, is it both? Yeah, it's both because I've got both audio up. Wow. So were you able to capture the data?
Yeah, did that fix it?
Yes, I believe it did. You're not echoing.
Okay. So what I had to do was sample Core Audio D and figure out how to make it stop. And what made it stop... What?
Okay. I've got you on both, so hold on. I thought I heard an echo. It's because I'm...
But is it still doubling or no?
No, it's not.
I need to know. Okay. So I ended up having to stop loopback was the thing that fixed it. But I also captured that error message that I showed you. It said the configuration of the selected audio device, Universal Audio Thunderbolt, changed. And actually, it still says that on Mimo Live. But I'm okay, right?
I believe so. She sound okay in the chat room, folks? She does on Mimo.
Okay.
Yeah, they're saying.
Sorry it took so long, but I had to let it keep running to get the sample.
Mm-hmm. So there's still no rhyme or reason as to when this starts. That seems to be somewhat random. The events leading up to the looping.
Yeah. Hang on just a second. I'm glad this is on a week I don't have to record a lot, but I apologize. When it starts happening, you pretty much have to just like mute your speakers until you see me or Steve give a thumbs up. Maybe that should be our symbol. Steve, do you agree to that?
Sure.
Because there's no way people can hear us telling them everything's okay.
They can hear me.
Right. Let's see. No, not if the looping is happening. They're going to hear. They're not going to be able to hear you.
They do hear me, but it's on top. You need to give
them a thumbs up.
They do hear me. I did speak to them and they responded, but I agree. A visual cue is good.
Okay, that's all I'm trying to say. I understand your voice is there, but if they can't hear you,
they do hear me, and they acknowledge that they
because
heard me.
Of me looping, then it doesn't do any good. You need to give them the audio or the visual thing, I think. Okay, yeah, the name loopback does make you think this is what would happen. All right, well, let me see if I can record. Let's try muting Steve again. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, May 16th, 2021, and this is show number 836. Guess what else it is? It's the 16-year anniversary of the NosillaCast. I know it's not a big milestone this year, but every year we keep the show going without missing a week is a year to be celebrated, in my opinion. Now, I say we because without so many wonderful contributors to the show, we would definitely have missed quite a few weeks over the 16 years. For example, next week, Steve and I, having been fully vaccinated, are going to visit his fully vaccinated parents, whom we haven't seen in 15 months. Out of the blue, without me even asking, 3 people volunteered. Well, one of the people I volunteered them. Anyway, they agreed to do listener reviews, and they will be the bulk of next week's show. Because of them, I could spend quality time with 2 of the most awesome humans on the planet and not be worried about creating content for the show. Now, of course, by quality time, I mean Steve and I are going to upgrade their Macs to Big Sur from Catalina, so we're going to have a lot of fun.
Now that's some quality time.
We practiced on Steve's machine. Right?
We did.
And his machine is only spontaneously rebooted once.
Yes. All right. How you doing on chapter marks?
I forgot that one. That's how I'm doing. This one? That one? That one? That one? There we go. To that one. Nope. This one to that one. Really should keep that window somewhere else. Let's keep the main one over here. And let's do back here. I think Mike comes just to see his keystrokes work.
Well, seems to be working.
Save and add chapter marks. Yep. It's good stuff. Okay. And we'll put you there. Whoop. Nope. Put you over there. I still need a good way to move these back and forth. All right. And an honorable mention to Text Expander. I don't know whether Text Expander is doing anything on this. All right, muting Steve. What are you doing? Well, this week on Chit Chat Across the Pond, it's another episode of Programming by Stealth. In previous installments of our Git mini-series within a series in Programming by Stealth, Bart taught us how to work in Git standalone on one computer. Then he taught us how to work as one developer, but with multiple computers. In those installments, he taught us the necessary commands and their importance in the Git scheme of things. In this installment, he talks about how and where to work with a team in Git. We learn about the plethora of options from free to full enterprise-size Git as a service, and while he'll be focusing specifically on GitHub for future episodes. He explained how important it is to set up conventions for your team before you get started for things like coding styles. I mean, you got to decide tabs or spaces, right? And you just decide on things like your development paradigm and more. There's no coding in this episode as it's more philosophical than other episodes. I enjoyed it a lot, and we had some really fun discussions about what you do about working with people instead of just computers. You can find this episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond either in the Chit Chat Across the Pond feed in your podcatcher of choice or in the Programming by Stealth specific feed, or in the feed for Programming by Stealth by itself. All right, let's go fix that.
We're not hearing that.
Yeah, somebody brought video in. I have a guess who that was.
No, I didn't.
I did not do that. Apparently,
no,
I think that Alan did it.
I'm not hearing your playback.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you said, what are we looking at?
No.
Huh. Okay. I will double check it, but I didn't change it. But looking at it last time fixed it. Where's audio and video? Voice and video. There it is. Oh, you know what? I never turned loopback back on. Yeah, I did. Should be there. Hang on.
Still, are you guys hearing audio in the chat room, folks, when she plays back? Do a playback. So I'm not hearing anything right now. I can
see it. I'm seeing. Sorry?
We got a delay also.
Interesting.
We got a pretty big delay in your audio and your video.
Can we focus on one thing at a time?
Yeah.
What do you want me to fix?
I'd fix your audio and playback. They're not hearing it either.
Okay, I'll try quitting. I can see it as an input. It is moving when I do playback in Hindenburg. So this must be Discord got its panties in a bunch.
No, it's not. I don't hear it in Mimo either. It's your audio is not coming into Mimo.
Well,
your playback audio.
So I'm going to show you. Okay, nope, I can't do that. That's interesting. I'm going to move Discord over my over Hindenburg so you can see when I go into voice and video. So you should be seeing me talk. See the green bar moving there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You see it moving, right? So that's Discord. Now,
yeah, but that's your voice. That's not playback.
Yes, I understand that, Steve. Just give me a second. So let me pull this. I've got to move it out of the way because I can't move it afterwards. But so I'm going to start playing here. And then I'm going to go back into Discord. I'm going to go back here into user settings. I'm going to go into voice and video. See it moving when I'm not talking?
I can't explain it.
So I can't explain why you can't hear it, but I have everything set correctly because it's in there. I mean, it's moving in there, so I'm going to quit.
Something got its panties in a bunch probably when you got in that loopback scenario, and it didn't clear some.
I'm going to quit Discord is what I wanted to do, but I was trying to explain to you why I don't understand why it's not working because it's just fine. Sandy says she hears 2 Allisons. Oh, that's because I was talking over myself. Okay, I'm going to quit Discord. I'll be right back. But you said you can't hear me in Mimo Live either?
Playback.
Okay, so am I in live show listen? Yes. You hear me?
Yes.
Now let me try playback again.
So I am hearing you in Discord, but not in Mimo.
I need you to not be talking because I want people to tell me if they hear. Could you hear it when I had my hand over my mouth? Okay, so Kevin says he does hear playback there.
I don't
see it moving over in Mimo Live.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Discord problem. I think it's something else. It's before Discord. It's
okay, but hang on. If they're hearing it in Discord, Alan can hear it, and John can hear it, Kevin can hear it. So there's nothing wrong with Discord. So now I probably have to quit Mimo Live and go back in. Because you're right, it's not moving like it should.
Go ahead and give that a try. So the answer to your question, Frank, is that her audio setup is a lot more complex than mine because of all of she has to record her voice and playback. I don't have to do all of that. So my audio setup is pretty simple.
Okay, here, tell me if you hear it, Steve. You can find this episode of Chit Chat Across the... Okay.
I can hear it.
So Mimo Live didn't like that leaving and coming back nonsense. Okay, I got to get moving because I'm getting really behind.
Okay.
And I can't do anything about the delay, but buy you a new computer.
You're synced up again. So whatever you did when you quit Mimo solved it, at least for now.
Interesting.
All
right.
Did you fix the audio thing already? I lost it. Did you? You did fix the audio thing that changes you made at the end? Okay, you must have.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about the mistake I made.
You went back to make an edit, and in the process
I did
of making the edit. Okay.
I did the edit. You just couldn't hear me do the edit, so it's all set.
Got it.
Okay. I'm going to move this out just a little bit there. All right. And I did a chapter mark. And I don't know why we're crying. This is stressful. Let's have fun. Let's stop being stressed out. Let's have this work for a little while. Here we go. Drink. Thank you, John. Okay. Michael says not to worry. Fun is ordered. There we go. Okay, here we go. I've written a lot of posts about Parallels Toolbox, the menu bar app that gives you access to lots of tiny tools that each do one specific thing. The reason I've talked about Parallels Toolbox so many times is that they keep adding more and more tools to the toolbox, so every year or so, it's fun to tell you what's new. Right after I wrote my last article about Parallels Toolbox, I let Alexander, the Parallels Toolbox project manager, know about the post. He let me know that they were working on a pretty substantial interface change to the toolbox. At first I was dismayed because I had just finished the article, but I realized it would give me an excuse to talk about one of my favorite tools yet again when the new interface came out, and that time is now. As a reminder, Parallels Toolbox is a subscription service, but it's only $20 a year. That works out to $1.67 per month. For a tool that is constantly being updated with additional, useful options, I think it's a fantastic deal. So developers who use the subscription model say that having a constant revenue stream helps them keep adding features and improving the software. I don't know if I believe all of them, but this is absolutely proven to be true with Parallels Toolbox. For that paltry $20 a year, Parallels has continuously added more and more tools to the toolbox over time. In 2017, when I talked about it, they had 18 tools. They added 9 more by 2018 and 10 more by 2021. So that's now 37 tools in the toolbox, which is why the subscription feels like money well spent to me. But picture if you designed a toolbox to hold around 18 tools. But over the years, you kept acquiring more and more, and now you're stuffing 37 in that same toolbox. It was getting hard to find the right tool for the job at hand. In my most recent article, I explained that they added the ability to change some tools to be invisible, but that's sort of like creating a junk drawer for abandoned wrenches that you might need someday, but you're going to forget that they're in there. Not an ideal situation, and it was definitely time for a new coat of paint on Parallels Toolbox. The new interface gives you 2 separate views, Library and Dashboard. The Library view lists all of the tools in a nice, compact alphabetical list. It's a long list, but it's nice and compact. You get the visual icon, the name, and a short description. Before the redesign, they used a grid view, which, while alphabetical, was harder to scan for the app you need. If I could have an improvement to Parallels Toolbox, I'd ask for 2 things, especially on this view. I'd like to be able to increase the length of the window, but it's a static size. It's not very tall. If you don't have scroll bars always visible, you do that in System Preferences, General, Show Scroll Bars, Always, you actually might look at this window and think there's only 6 tools in Parallels Toolbox instead of 37, because that's all you can see. The other thing I'd like is to be able to tear off the Parallels Toolbox menu from the menu bar. I've gotten used to being able to do that with the Rogue Amoeba tools like Sound Source, and now I want it in all my tools. Anyway, at the top of this long list in the library, you're going to see some category names now. You'll see audio, files, images, internet, productivity, screen capture, system, time, utilities, and video. The categories are great because you can just select what you want to do without having to know the name of the tool. The other reason this works well is that one tool can fit in multiple categories. For example, let's say you want to create a screen recording. You can look in the video tab or the screen capture tab, and you'll find the tool you're looking for. Now, to use a tool, you can simply click it in the list from the library. If you hover over the tool, you'll see a hollow star and a gear. If you click the star, it'll turn solid, and then it'll be shown on the dashboard tab. So you kind of put your favorites over on the dashboard. There's even a cute little animation as the tool flies up to land on the dashboard tab. So, like I said, by starring those favorite tools, they're ready at your fingertips on the dashboard, and yet all the tools are still there in the library. It's a much better way than throwing tools in a junk drawer and making them invisible. When you decide that a tool isn't getting used enough to be worthy of being on the dashboard, back in the library you can click the star again, it changes back to hollow and disappears from the dashboard. But unfortunately, you don't get a cute animation when you banish the tool. I mentioned that in the library view, when you hover over a tool, you also see a little gear. Tapping the gear will surface any tool-specific settings. For example, if you tap the gear on Record Area, you'll get drop-down options to change which microphone to record and your desired resolution, and checkboxes for whether to show a floating panel and whether to highlight mouse clicks, and finally a drop-down to choose the location to save your videos. In case you're curious, the floating panel lets you change the microphone on the fly, set a delay before recording, and tells you the keystroke to stop the screen recording. Have I ever mentioned that I love tools to record the screen? No? Well, anyway, I actually use Parallels Toolbox screen recording more than pretty much any other option I've tried. Now, explain that the dashboard is where all of your starred or favorited apps go, so you have quick access to them. Below the dashboard, you'll also see recent tools you've used. I really like the recent section because often I use one tool over and over and over again during a particular project, but it may not be worthy of the favorite status. In fact, looking at the recent section, I just figured something out. It shows my most recent tool is Hide Desktop Files, and it's highlighted in a white circle. That means it's active right now. I've been thinking that I've been running a nice, clean desktop lately, and I was super confused when I worked on my backup laptop just earlier. You see, the desktop over there was a hot mess, and I use iCloud syncing of my documents and desktop. But over there, since I'm not running Parallels Toolbox, it was just glop all over the place. So I don't know, maybe delusion is a good thing. If categories are not your thing, Parallels Toolbox has a search tool as well. In my experience, it finds the tools I expect it to find, and sometimes a few more unexpected items. For example, I searched for the word area, expecting it to find only capture area and record area tools, but it also found the unit converter tool. The only thing I could think of is that the unit converter tool will tell you how many square feet in a square centimeter. Now, you knew I couldn't let that go without being sure, so I searched for volume and length, and sure enough, unit converter came up in those searches as well. So it looks like they put tags in, some sort of tags in, so that you can search for what you're trying to do rather than having to know the name of the tool. I have to say, very, very clever folks designed these tools. When you first launch your shiny new copy of Parallels Toolbox, you'll be offered an affiliate link to send to your friends, family, fellow parishioners, and random people you meet in the grocery store. If someone uses your affiliate link, you also get 3 months free, and so do they. Wait, what? You want my affiliate link so you can help support the show? Well, I'm so glad you asked. I put that link in the show notes, and to make it easier on you, I've added it to my ever-growing list of spammy links at the end of every podcast episode's show notes. Now, I haven't forgotten that on my to-do list is to remember to nag Alexander every few months to make sure they move accessibility up on their to-do list, and I'll be sure to let you know when they've prioritized it higher and they're ready for you to test it. One more thing. Sandy has been testing out a Parallels Toolbox, and she's got a very curious problem where one of the tools has slid off screen to the far left where she can't grab it and bring it back. Now, I bring that up not because there's a bug in a tool, because that's not a big news story, but because she's been having a lot of trouble getting Parallels Toolbox support to help her. They only help through things like Twitter and Facebook Messenger, and she's contacted them several times, and at first they paid attention to her, and they just stopped paying attention to her. So I just want to be fair that maybe the support isn't so good, and for something you're paying $20 a year for, I think you should expect to get support when there's something wrong with the tool. In my last discussion of Parallels Toolbox, I told you about the tool Break Time that at an interval of your choosing locks up your screen and makes you let go of the keyboard for 3 minutes and take a rest. I said I wasn't sure I'd keep using it, but I was willing to give it a try. It turns out I'm loving it. When it's break time, I can snooze it for a minute or so I can get something done, or I can actually skip the break entirely. But 9 times out of 10, I just get up, walk in the other room, and I find some small task to do that I was going to do later anyway. If I take a break all by myself, without it nagging me, when I come back, there's a message giving me positive reinforcement for the break. I am meeting my stand goals more often now than ever before, so I call that a win all around. Now, I know it sounds like I'm advertising for Parallels Toolbox, but I promise you, I'm simply a huge fan, and I use at least one tool a day, if not more.
So, Lindsay the daughter joined us.
Lindsay the daughter? Hi, Lindsay the daughter. How are you?
The very same one.
I will do a save. I might even do a chapter mark.
Let's check this.
We'll see. You want to see it work?
Yeah, I always check it. I blow up the
No,
big
do you want to see it here? You
Oh,
want to
yeah.
see it?
Go ahead.
Let's make
Show
it where
it to
you
me.
can see it.
I
It's
dare
even
you.
more fun. Actually, no, I'm not. Let's see. So I hold down all these keys, and I'm going to do
Smash them down.
Copy link. Command C. Boom, boom, boom. Best automation ever written in the history of time. All right. Apple TV
so
Plus
the chat room was talking a little bit about that special, that show that was narrated by Attenborough. I think it was how
when the
world,
Earth stood still is what I think
when
about.
When the Earth changed, or when the world changed. I forget what it was called. That was great. Really well done.
That was
anything
really good.
I don't think he puts his voice on it unless it's superb. He's got a brand, right?
Yeah. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
Really kind of makes you think.
It does.
We went on a safari when we were in India where we got to see a tiger out in the wild. And there's a scene in that movie that shows what's happening because of those safaris, with all the little Jeeps trying to jockey for position and trying to get to where, so people can take photos and video from their Jeep. And it really made me feel like we shouldn't do stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it was the setting was the cheetah cubs trying to communicate, or the cheetah mom trying to communicate to the cubs with her chirp sound saying, "Come and get the meal." And they couldn't hear it because of all the sounds that from all of the Jeeps running around and the people yelling.
Yeah, it made me feel like we're horrible.
Yep. I didn't feel so good about that safari after seeing that.
Oh, Jason, I'm so jealous to have Ted Lasso to look forward to.
Oh.
We watched it twice.
That's a treat. Gotta watch that, Jason. It's really uplifting. It's a feel good. I mean, it's got its moments.
It's kind people.
Kind, yeah, that's a better word.
It's a very kind show. Alan. All right. I should probably get recording.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, July for the next season. We should probably watch it all over again, Steve.
Right. I do,
all right,
Willie.
I'm going to record
Third time's
here.
a charm.
All right, here goes. Hey. It didn't work. That chapter mark's wrong.
Oh,
it says marker 5.
I saw it go.
Yeah, but it says marker 5.
Let's try it again.
That's not what it's supposed to say. Let's try it again. What happened? Woo. No, I bring you up here. All right. Okay, let's watch. Okay. Copy link.
Did you smash down all the keys?
I did.
Marker 5.
That time it worked.
Oh, but I see it twice.
Oh. Oh, no.
It copied over the other one?
Oh, it pasted it up there. It got the wrong name.
Oh, interesting.
That's not good.
I wonder if it's, is it the link possibly?
No. Let's go back up here and redo this one. Get rid of that one. And I'm going to mash down all my keys. It like connected them together. I must have left my cursor in a weird place. There we go.
There you go.
So now that one's right. I'm going to go this one. There we go. Can't possibly be Mike's fault.
No.
All right. Man, it's getting crowded in the chat room tonight. Okay, try this one. Okay, this one, I'm going to be cranky for this one. Here we go. Apple recently released some new features, and I'm doing air quotes as I say that, to the Apple Podcasts app. And if you don't use a third-party app as your podcatcher of choice and do use Apple Podcasts, you're really going to want to listen up to what I have to say. Even if you do use a third-party app, some of this will apply to you, and I'm afraid it's not great news. Before you start writing me a note to tell me Apple pushed out an update that removed a lot of the problems people were having with Apple Podcasts, let me make it clear that nothing I'm going to tell you was fixed with that update. I was curious what percentage of people listening to podcasts today use Apple's podcast app, Because of all the problems, I was curious whether I could just ignore this problem. But this week, Ken Ray had the head of Libsyn, Rob Walsh, on his show In a Few Minutes to talk about some of the problems. Now, Libsyn's business is to host podcast files, so they know what they're talking about. According to Rob's most recent metrics, 42% of all downloads from Libsyn are from Apple's podcast app. So there's no way I can just tell this audience, use another tool because Apple Podcasts has problems. But I do want you to understand what's happening and how it's going to affect you. It appears that the changes to the podcast app were because of their new option to allow podcasters to have paid subscription options for their listeners. The first change, which preceded the update to the podcast app, was to change their terminology about how you get your podcast delivered. We've been using subscribe since October of 2004 when podcasting was invented, but Apple decided that word subscribe is confusing to listeners because it implies you have to pay for it, and they want you to know when you're paying for something. Now, they're not wrong. As far back as I can remember, I've had to explain, I know it says subscribe, but it still means free. Well, they changed the terminology to use follow instead of subscribe in Apple Podcasts. That was step one, and it was the reason a month or so ago I said in my ending just once, and please stay followed. Now, that ending just doesn't work at all, and the live audience has been suggesting a few ideas. They've said maybe I could use, and please keep listening. Anyway, if you have a better idea for my ending line, please let me know. Well, the second shoe to drop was the option for podcasters to have paid subscriptions. Now, let's look at what Apple is offering to podcasters. If I make a subscription available to you, Apple will get 30% of the cut. Unlike app developers, podcasters are not locked in with this agreement. A podcaster can have content available through an Apple Podcast subscription and have the same content available for free or through other paid services. You could still have Patreon, you can roll your own subscriptions, and use the Apple Podcast subscriptions. This can be more of a supplemental income for podcasters. Sounds great. Now, there is one huge advantage with selling podcast subscriptions through Apple, at least for the podcaster. People have a strong tendency to keep their credit card active for their Apple ID because it's how they pay for apps, subscribe to HBO, get iCloud Photo Library, Apple Music, and more. This can help make an Apple Podcast subscription very sticky. In Patreon, if your credit card number changes, Patreon can't bill you until you fix it. You may not even notice this has happened. And if you do, it's an invitation to rethink. Do you really feel that pledge you made is the right one for you and your family? On the personal level, that sounds like a good thing. But for the person being paid, we want you to never think about that, right? Well, maybe 30% is worth it, and not having to manage it is easy. And they do change it to 15% after each individual subscriber keeps subscribing past 12 months. That's pretty easy money right there. Like app developers, podcasters won't have any access to their customers through the App Store subscriptions. Unlike an app, though, by definition, we have access to our customers through our voice. We can simply announce new things or even concerns through the podcast itself. I'm also not in the business of tracking my listeners anyway, so this may be a bigger deal to other podcasters than it is to me. However, there's one really, truly dumb thing about the new subscription model in Apple Podcasts, and it's affecting podcasts that are not even using the subscription model, which isn't out yet. With normal podcasts, the podcaster records their audio or video, they put it on a server on the internet of a place they control. Many podcasts use podcast file hosts like Libsyn I mentioned earlier, and there's another great one called Blueberry. When we create what's called the RSS feed, which is a text file in the format XML, we do that, we have to have this little RSS feed. You can actually create these and view these files with a text editor, and they're pretty human readable. The XML RSS feed file points to the location on the internet where the attachments are located. The attachments are the audio or video files for the podcast. Okay, so we got a text file that points to the podcast recording. Great. As a podcaster, we register the location of the RSS text file with Apple. That allows you to subscribe not just through Apple Podcasts, but nearly all podcast apps reference Apple's directory, so it's critical that it's right on Apple's side. Unfortunately, Apple evidently changed a lot on the back end when they came up with this subscribe versus follow idea. First of all, they're going to host the audio files themselves for the subscription rather than the podcaster having control of the files. Secondly, they appear to have slowed down how often they check for a change to an RSS feed file. Before the changes, I could publish my podcast feed, and in literally seconds, I could see the new audio recordings in Downcast, Overcast, and Apple Podcasts. Now what happens is it comes to Downcast and Overcast and Pocket Cast very quickly, but Apple Podcasts can be delayed by hours. Now, there's another problem. While I haven't been affected directly by this, I know Bart's show Let's Talk Photography has been affected. He has 91 episodes, and the 91st episode was published on April 25th, but it's not in Apple Podcasts yet. However, episode 91 is showing perfectly in all the other podcatchers I've tested. So if you're a fan of his show, it's not that he hasn't done an episode in a while. He has done his episode, but you can't see it if you're using Apple Podcasts. Dave Hamilton ran into the delay I was talking about when he had an error in his feed, and it took literally hours for the correction to appear. Worked fine in the other podcatchers, but not in Apple Podcasts. And remember, these podcasts are not part of the subscription pod service. Nothing to do with that. They're just plain old regular podcasts. If you're using Apple Podcasts and shows aren't showing up when you expect them, you really might want to try out a different podcatcher. Now, there's one really dumb thing about Apple's podcast subscription service. When a podcaster wants to create a podcast episode, they don't upload the audio or video file to a place of their choosing and then send the RSS link to Apple. The podcaster will actually upload the media file directly to Apple. And Apple has chosen two format options for podcasters, WAV or FLAC. Both of these are uncompressed, which is dandy because they'll probably do a fine job of compression, but WAV and FLAC do not support chapter marks. Now, it's quite possible you could subscribe to the premium version of a podcast, say, a version without ads, but you'd have a worse experience because you couldn't jump forward and back to the content you wanted to hear. This is dumb beyond belief because there's a perfectly good uncompressed format that does support chapter marks. It's called AIFF. It stands for Audio Interchange File Format. And guess what? It was developed by none other than Apple back in 1988. This is such a dumb move on Apple's part. It just makes me crazy. But wait, there's more. I use the application Feeder from Reinvented Software to create my RSS feed file, that little text file I was telling you about that points to the audio or video file location. I carefully craft links in the show notes using Feeder so that you can easily click the links to go to the blog post for any topic in the show. From there, you can see the images, follow links to buy products, and more. You know how you'll see some text on a website that says click here, and it's blue underlined so you know it's a link, and when you click it, it takes you to another website? Well, the words click here are called the link text, but under the hood, there's code that tells the link where to go. I use this technique to make human-readable links for the website and for your podcatcher. So when I want to give you a link to one of my blog posts, you'll see accidentally outsmarting an air tag, and that will be a link. You don't have to see https://www.podfeed.com/blog/2021/05/airtag-RFID-block. That's what you would see if I didn't use this link text. So, another great example, for my Tesla affiliate link, I put at the end of the show notes, hoping someone day will buy a Tesla using it and get some free charging out of the deal. You see Tesla affiliate link instead of that long drawn out URL, https://www.tesla.com/referral/Allison57431. Would you want to see that? Of course not. Tesla affiliate link is perfect. Well, last week when I went to publish the show using Feeder, I noticed that my Tesla affiliate link text was no longer showing as a link in the preview in Feeder. It was just the text Tesla affiliate link. However, my text that was things like podfeed.com/Patreon and podfeed.com/Slack were showing as real links in the preview. I shot an email to Steve Harris, the developer of Feeder, and I whimsically entitled it, "Why Do You Hate Tesla?" I had assumed and hoped it was just a bug in Feeder, but his response floored me. He wrote back, "The question is, surely, why does Apple hate Tesla?" He went on to explain, in the latest version of podcasts, Apple has stopped showing links unless they're displayed as URLs or email addresses, which is why podfeed.com/Patreon works and Tesla affiliate link does not. I realized after reading his explanation that it wasn't just my Tesla affiliate link that was no longer a link. None of my blog post links were there either. Steve Harris explained that in Feeder, there's a drop-down in the bottom right that when set to podcast is the preview of what Apple Podcasts will show, and if you change it to the view standard, it'll be what every other podcatcher on Earth shows. I switched to standard view, and sure enough, all of the links show properly. Now, I'm at a bit of a dilemma here. I could fold my hands and wait in the hope that Apple fixes this problem on their own. And for the time being, those possibly 42% of you using Apple Podcasts to hear the show will suffer with no links. Of course, it's altogether possible Apple didn't do this by mistake. It's possible they looked at click here type links and thought, hey, couldn't somebody use this to drive traffic to a link with malware without the user realizing it? If that's the case, this isn't a bug, it's a feature, and you'll be waiting forever for a fix. But the flip side is just as bad. In the flip side, I would make the link text be most of the URL, which would still make it look much uglier for everyone. I don't have to keep the https://www part of the URL, but you would still see podfeed.com/blog/2021/05/airtag-RFID-block as the link to click. I could put the plain text bit ahead of it, but it gets quite long and icky. It's just a bad deal all around. I was chatting with folks about this in Slack, and Alistair suggested using a URL shortener like maybe bit.ly. That's a bunch more work for me, and I'd have to figure out how to automate it because it'd make me crazy having to take every single link and put it over there and get a Bitly link out of it. Steve Harris offered another solution, but I wasn't fond of that one either. There are two fields where I could put the text for the episode. In Feeder, he calls them description and episode summary. Episode summary is what would show up in Apple Podcasts, and description is where the formatted HTML would go, which every other podcatcher would display. I could spend some more time working in regular expressions and figure out how to create an ugly but functional version for Apple Podcasts and keep the nice version for everyone else. But I'm kind of tired now, There's actually a 17th option here. I like this option because I don't have to do any of the work. If you're using Apple Podcasts and you care about getting the links to the blog post, you can actually subscribe to the show by adding it by the RSS feed URL. So if you're on your iPhone, go to the Library tab and tap the Edit button in the upper right. From the menu, choose Add a Show by URL. Then paste in the URL I have in the show notes. It's basically podfeed.com/NosillaCast/RSS.xml. But there's capital letters in there and everything, so go look in the show notes. And I put up a picture of what you have to put in. If you're on the Mac, you go to File, Add a Show by URL, and drop in the same URL. That was easy, right? And if you don't care about the links to the blog post, and you don't care if it comes late, and you don't care if maybe, show 91, a Bart show, doesn't come in on time, then you don't have to do anything, and neither do I. By the way, putting in that URL, that fixes all of the problems because Apple isn't doing their own nonsense with the feed. It's the real feed URL going in there. There's two flaws in this whole idea, though. If you're listening to this explanation in Apple Podcasts app right now, you don't have the link to the blog post describing this process, so you can't easily go get the URL I just told you to paste. Also, if someone subscribes tomorrow to the NosillaCast or any of the other fine Podfeed podcasts, they will never know how to fix this problem. So, can I interest you in another podcatcher by any chance? I've put links in the show notes to the top 3 podcatchers I hear about the most, and you might want to give them a try and see if you can find one you like. I put in links for Overcast, Downcast, and Pocket Cast. Maybe you want to go look at one of those. Now, I don't want to end this with a 100% slam against Apple for doing serious damage to the podcast ecosystem, so I'll say one nice thing that they did. They created the concept of channels. This allows podcasters, like me, who have a lot of shows, to have them all piled together in one place in the podcast app. I created my channel, and it looks really lovely with artwork to their insane specifications. I mean, it took me forever to get the artwork ready, but I've got in descriptions and all that. But the podcast channels won't show up in the podcast app until subscriptions start, so you can't go see it yet. But I think it's going to be kind of slick to be able to see all my shows in one place. Other than that, everything is just peachy with Apple Podcasts. I want to have one more thing to tell you. I just learned on Bodie Grimm's Kilowatt podcast that Tesla is canceling their link affiliate program. So never mind that link. I'm going to be taking it out of the show notes.
Okay.
Well, now that's a big typo.
Did you
it
see
says
the
918.0. Yeah.
Yeah, the 918 is his podcast is, or his website is 918 something, so that probably got cut off.
It's 918 Media.
Yeah, and I saw one other little typo.
There was like a missing quote or something.
You had a quote exchange.
A quote on one side, a bracket on the other, or something.
Yeah. Do you want me to fix that? If I can find it.
Yeah, first one to find it. Actually, I'll change it, but oh, there it is. Audio interchange file format. That's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could have used either one. Probably quotes is better.
Yeah. Well, it should have been parentheses. All right. I should probably save. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing. Since
all right.
You were reminded 16 times by Kevin.
Was I? I didn't notice. Apparently, there is an affiliate link method, but it's according to Bodhi, it's like, let's say Sandy wanted to buy a Tesla. I would sit down with Sandy and help her create an account at Tesla, put my affiliate code in there, have her put that in, and then she goes and test drives the car. And if she buys the car, then I would get something. So,
you know, I would recommend if people want to learn more about EVs, Bodhi's podcast would be a good way to start. It's kind of a good intro. And you put his link in there, right? Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
He's a nice guy.
We came up with an idea he might be fun to have on the show, too. And I'm going to be on his show on Kilowatt, and we're going to do a crossover episode. He's going to let me play it for Chit Chat, so it'll be fun.
Cool.
All right. I'm going to do pledge break, so muting Steve. If you get enjoyment, entertainment, or even learn something from listening to the NosillaCast and the other fine podcasts we do here at the Podfeed Podcast, have you ever considered going over to the Apple Podcasts app, the one I just said was really bad, and leaving a review? We just got 3 lovely reviews recently. AMND 2015 wrote, "This is an update to my last 5-star review. I still love the NosillaCast Apple Podcast. Allison has continued to provide a wealth of tech info with humor." Now, there's a lot more to that review, and it made me really happy to read it. Likewise, L. Butler recently wrote a first review where he said, "Allison Sheridan has been doing this podcast every week since podcasts were invented, maybe before. And she covers everything from security to fun new applications, programming by stealth, and usability tips. Highly recommended." On Chit Chat Across the Pond, we got a new review from Shai, and he wrote, "This is a great podcast. I love how each episode is so varied. With guests from all different walks of life, geographic locations, and career paths, we get a wonderful array of perspectives." Aren't those nice reviews? I love those. These short and long reviews make me happy, helps get the show noticed, which brings in more listeners, which means more friends for all of us. I put a link in the show notes to each of the shows in Apple Podcasts, and I hope you'll take a moment to click in and give a review. Here's a hint, though. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the podcast once you get to it to find the review section.
So those links don't appear to be live.
Right. Remember I told you I was messing around with... The problem is if they're in Apple Podcasts, they got...
Oh.
No, actually, no, I don't think that's true. I'll fix it before we go out.
Okay.
So it's time for security. Don't let me forget to fix it, though. How about a chapter mark?
Do you need a chapter mark? Yeah.
I do. Copy link. Copy. See if it did it right that time. There we go. All right. And I had to edit the daylights out of security bits because Skype kept hanging up on us, which was really fun. Okay. Where's the security bits music? What's it called? There it is. Try that there. Slide this over. I'm sitting way off center.
Got a little gap there at the...
Yeah, let's see if it's too much or too fine. Review section. Okay, you just talked over it, so you're not going to hear the transition. Let's try it. Maybe it's the delay that causes that. Find the review section.
That works.
Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Security Bits with Bart Busschots, which is actually one of my favorite things we do together, Bart.
Likewise, actually. These are always
good.
I'm curious. Why is this? Why aren't you having to split this like you do? Oh, you're about to do that.
I can, but it doesn't.
But why do you split them versus Oh,
Actually,
do you want to adjust
no,
your audio compared to his sometimes?
Yeah, but I'm not going to be able to.
Because?
Oh, it's
got complicated.
It's a whole thing. Because I had to edit the file, I had to bring it into Hindenburg, and then I exported it as stereo, but it looks like I did it as one. But I'm not going to mess with it because our audio levels look really good. See how much they're the same?
They look excellent.
How clean that is. That's going to be perfect. So that's it. I'm at 29 minutes or 28 minutes, and the show is an hour and 38 minutes.
Wow.
Hope you got a lot of time.
That's a big security bits, huh?
Yeah, it was fun.
Stay patched so you stay secure.
All right. I'm going to record the ending here. Wow, I know that was long, but man, we were having too much fun. I just love talking to Bart. So you guys got to hear a big, long show. We had a lot of fun, so I hope you did too. But that's going to wind us up for this week. Don't forget to send in your dumb questions. Why are you guys sending in dumb questions anymore? I know you've got dumb questions. Those are the questions that you think, boy, everybody else already knows the answer to this. I just don't. And 9 times out of 10, that's not true. There's at least somebody else who wishes I'd answer that same question for you. You can also send in your Everything is Fiddly recordings. We have 2 good ones for next week. You can send in comments and suggestions by emailing me. You can do all of that by emailing me at allison@podfeet.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @podfeet. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. You can go to our Patreon link, podfeet.com/Patreon. If you want to do a one-time donation, do podfeet.com/PayPal. You want to join Facebook with us? We've got a community over there at podfeet.com/Facebook. If you prefer Slack, we've got podfeet.com/Slack for a great conversation too. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. And happy birthday, NosillaCast. Cut that out there.
So when are you going to change the stay subscribed?
Well, I got to come up with a better ending.
Yeah. Stay followed just doesn't
following.
Do it.
Be subscribed.
Keep following.
And happy birthday, NosillaCast. What's that?
Keep following is good. It's got the word in, the follow word, which
keep
is
following?
important.
How about just keep listening? I don't care how you're doing it. I don't care if you're subscribing, whatever. Just follow.
I see your point. You want to leave all options open.
Sandy likes subscribe. Stay here. What's stay here mean? And stay here. I got keep listening. Please
don't
subscribe.
go anywhere else.
And happy birthday, NosillaCast. There we
Someone
go.
Is staring at me.
What's that?
Someone is staring at me like she wants attention.
Oh, I think we're supposed to do a chapter mark count. I only have 4.
That's how many I have.
All right. Export. Export as M4A. It goes in this folder, and we're going to save it. Whew, 556.
You made
Got it done in spite of all the mess. Good thing I didn't want to read a 3rd article.
Yeah.
Don't stop listening or else. Like that,
yeah. The old threatening sign off. That's a good way to leave them.
I don't care what Kevin says. I like having you here, Rick. Speaking of which, how much did you, or not how much, were you able to get enough gas to make it to Florida?
He ended up
I was worried about you. No.
You talking about Rick?
Did you decide not to go?
He postponed. Till what, a week or end of the month? Something like that? June 1st. Okay.
Gonig Jubniv 1.
Jubniv 1.
Rick is assistant wingman. Yeah, I don't know why you don't like him so much, Kevin. I think he's lovely. I don't understand what he's typing. He's got a cat on his keyboard, but he's a nice guy. All right. Well, why do you say those things about him behind his back then, Kevin? I love doing this. This is fun. No, Kevin never says anything mean. I'm just joking here. Cats are the worst for typing. Oh my gosh, somebody just sent me, was it you, Jill? Somebody just sent me on Instagram a video of a woman sitting at a big desk, and she's got her monitor about 2/3 of the way back, and there's a cat walking behind the monitor, And the cat reaches through underneath and knocks her glass of water over into the woman's lap. Just reaches through and goes, snap. It's terrible.
At least she missed the keyboard.
Well, I don't know. No, that was not evident.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is 5:58. Should we let class go? I don't think Rose came, so I'll kiss Lindsay goodbye. Goodbye, Lindsay the daughter.